There is a moment, and you know exactly what moment I'm talking about, when you look at your life and nothing is working. Not one thing. The finances aren't working, the relationships aren't working, the plans aren't working. The prayers feel like they're bouncing off the ceiling. And in that moment, most people assume that God is distant, disconnected, or done with them. But what if, in that exact moment, God is actually speaking? What if the silence isn't empty? What if it's full of something you haven't learned how to hear yet? Stay with me. You've done everything right. You set the goals, you made the plans, you prayed over them, you showed up, you tried again after you failed. And yet, here you are. The door you knocked on is still closed. The breakthrough you expected still hasn't come. And every time you think you see a turning point, something else collapses and you're back at the start. And it's not just one area of your life, it's everything at once. It's like every system you depend on decided to stop functioning at the same time. Your career, your health, your family, your confidence. And the weight of it has started to exhaust you in a way that sleep cannot fix. You're not angry at God. You're just tired, bone tired. And somewhere in the middle of all that exhaustion, you've started to wonder, is God trying to tell me something? And if he is, why won't he just say it clearly? That question is exactly where I want to meet you today. I want to take you to one of the most raw, unfiltered breakdowns in all of Scripture. A prophet named Elijah, one of the most powerful men of God who ever lived, a man who called fire from heaven, a man who had just seen one of the greatest miracles in Israelite history. And then, in 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 4, he sits down under a tree, alone in the wilderness, and says, "It is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers." That is not the prayer of a man who is thriving. That is the prayer of a man who is completely, utterly done. Everything in Elijah's life felt like it had stopped working. The victory was gone, the momentum was gone, the joy was gone. He was running on empty, and he asked God to let him die. And notice what God did not do. He didn't rebuke Elijah. He didn't lecture him. He didn't send a sermon. He sent an angel who touched him and said, "Arise and eat." He gave him food. He gave him water. He let him sleep. And then he came again a second time and said, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for thee." 1 Kings 19, verse 7. God met the broken prophet not with theology, but with tenderness. Here is what I need you to understand about Elijah's story and about your story. God did not speak to Elijah in the wind. He did not speak in the earthquake. He did not speak in the fire. After all that noise and power and chaos, the word says in 1 Kings 19, verse 12, "And after the fire, a still small voice." A still small voice. That is how God chose to speak to one of his greatest prophets. Not in the spectacular, not in the overwhelming, but in a whisper so quiet that you could only hear it if everything else in you had gone completely still.
And here is the painful truth that nobody wants to hear. Sometimes God allows everything in your life to stop working because the noise of your striving, the chaos of your busyness, the roar of your own effort has become so loud that you can no longer hear the one voice that actually matters. The breakdown is not punishment. The breakdown is an invitation. God is creating the conditions for you to finally hear what he's been saying all along. Psalm 46, verse 10, God speaks these words, "Be still and know that I am God." Not be busy, not be strategic, not be productive. Be still. That word in the original Hebrew means to let go, to release your grip, to stop striving, to cease. And in that ceasing, in that holy quiet, God reveals himself.
And then go to Jeremiah 29, verse 11, written to people who were in one of the worst seasons of their entire national history, people who had lost everything, people in captivity, people whose plans had completely collapsed. And God said to them, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. Even in the ruins, even in the collapse, even when nothing was working, God said, I know the plan, and the plan is still good. Hear this and let it go deep. When nothing in your life is working, God is not absent. He is repositioning you. The breakdown of your plan is often the beginning of His. And write this one down. God does not speak in the chaos. He speaks in the stillness. And sometimes He creates the stillness by dismantling the chaos Himself. Paul, the apostle who was beaten, shipwrecked, imprisoned, and left for dead, heard something from God that completely reframed his suffering. In 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9, God said to him, My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Read that carefully. God said, My strength is made perfect in your weakness, not despite your weakness, not around your weakness, in it. The broken places in your life are not obstacles to God's power. They are the exact location where His power shows up most completely. Paul responded to that word by saying, Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. He stopped fighting the weakness. He stopped trying to fix himself out of the hard season, and he leaned into it, because he understood that God was not absent in the struggle. God was at work in it.
In Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, a verse you may have heard your whole life, but I need you to hear it differently today. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. Lean not unto thine own understanding. God is saying, stop trying to figure out what I'm doing. Stop trying to calculate your way out of this season. Stop demanding that it makes sense before you trust me. Acknowledge me. Put me first in this broken, confusing, falling apart moment, and I will direct your path. Not when it's cleaned up, not when you have it together. Now, in the middle of the mess, He will direct your path.
That is what God is saying to you when nothing is working. He is saying, stop, be still, let go of the noise. I am still God. I still have a plan, and I am about to speak if you can get quiet enough to hear me. So here's what I want to leave with you today. The next time you look at your life and nothing seems to be working, don't spiral, don't run, don't fill the silence with more striving. Instead, do something that will feel completely unnatural. Get still and listen. Because God is not punishing you with this season. He is positioning you in it. He sent an angel to Elijah, not when everything was going right, but when Elijah was flat on his face under a tree, out of strength, out of hope, out of answers. And that is exactly when God showed up, quietly, gently, personally. He is doing the same for you, right now, in this exact season that makes no sense. He is in the stillness, and He is speaking. The question is not whether God has a word for you. The question is whether you are quiet enough to hear it. Get still today. Open your hands, lay down the striving, and say, God, I don't understand this season, but I trust you in it. That is the prayer that opens the next chapter. If this message found you exactly where you needed it today, drop a comment below. Just say, I'm getting still, because somebody watching needs to see that surrender right now. And if this channel has been speaking to your season, subscribe and stay with us, because every single week we come back to the Word and we find our way back to peace. God is still speaking. Get still enough to hear Him.